We looked at Birmingham. Whilst, there's one thing, when we come, being in Amsterdam as the biggest show in town, you get a lot of attraction and you get noticed. The same in Barcelona. In London, you're just one of many events happening.
Hello and welcome. My name is Simon Parker. I'm the guest editor of Exhibition News. Today, I'm joined by Mike Blackman, who is the Managing Director of Integrated Systems Events, best known for the Integrated Systems Europe show, but also have a number of other events. I mean, it's a massive event, Mike, and I think something like 1,300 exhibitors. So can you just do a brief introduction to yourself?
Okay.
You got into that role, and then just a little bit about the show would be brilliant.
Well, like you, we both started our careers in this business at Montgomery's. I think one of the best kindergarten for the exhibition and business. We learned a lot there. And I got some years ago headhunted, 30 years ago now, headhunted to go to Germany for IDG and set up their business there. And then did my own consultancy business for a while, and then got headhunted to start m.i.c.e 18 years ago, and haven't looked back since. We've grown the event. We started off in Geneva, in Switzerland. It was a great place to start, but unfortunately, it's in Europe, but not in Europe. You've got the same problem, haven't you, now?
Something like that. We don't talk about it.
We then moved it to Amsterdam because, obviously the biggest issue a lot of our exhibitors had was doing all the paperwork for customs, import, export, etc. We went to Amsterdam, found it worked for us, but couldn't get a tenancy for the following year. So we moved it to Brussels and had the option then to move back to Amsterdam in 2006 and have been there ever since, up until, we outgrew the venue.
And it's a JV between two trade associations, am I correct?
Correct, yes. So it started off as 3 trade associations. And one of the associations got bought out in 2007. So we're back now to 2, which is AVIXA, which covers the commercial audiovisual business, and CEDIA, which covers the residential audiovisual business. They are both international organizations with headquarters in the USA. And the Integrated Systems Events is a joint venture, 50-50 joint venture of the 2 associations. They are not-for-profit associations, but we are a for-profit company. And all of our profits go back to the associations and get invested back into developing the AV industry. So we're quite critical for that.
Yeah, and it's a big beast, isn't it? I mean, I know that you do lots of other things, but the kind of the blue ribbon event, if you like, is ISE. And it's 1,300 exhibitors, 116,000 attendee visits, etc. I mean, this is a big old. Explain a little bit about the community and what it does, and what sort of position it has.
What it is,
what it is.
It's quite easy because AV touches almost everything, in both commercial and residential. If we start in the residential environment, everyone knows that term smart home. And that means, having a home that has, central controls for the lighting, for the heating, for the shutters, for everything that makes it comfortable to live and more convenient. Home theater is a very large part of that. So when we talk about home theater, we're not necessarily referring to the screen and the 5 boxes you buy from Dixon's. Do they still exist?
Yes. I might have to edit that. yes or no. One of which is true.
One of which is true. And it's ages since I've been out of the UK. But we're talking about home theatres that are really specifically designed in that way, and it's something which is developing more and more in Europe, particularly in the UK, where people can afford something like that, are actually creating cinemas in their home that are custom made. And it's not just for watching movies, it's for playing PlayStation or watching England beat Germany. Oh my God.
For the benefit of the tape, Mike's based in Germany as well. So,
you know, it's something which has grown, and you know, the price is, it's like, you know, what does a car cost? You can buy a Rolls Royce or you know, a Skoda, and there's a whole myriad of pricing in between. The same with home cinema. So it covers everything.
Yeah, and you must be riding the crest of a wave at the moment, because that sector is absolutely growing like Billy-O.
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. So if we look at our sector, so let's cover the other part, which is the commercial part, which means, you know, everything in the office, from what you have in your conference rooms to actually doing what we're doing right now, which is a Zoom call. This is part of what our exhibits and what the solutions that are presented at m.i.c.e. And that comes to this yes or no about growth. There are two things that have happened. Live events, which we're also involved in. You know, we are a live events company. We are a live events company when we organize exhibitions. And as such, we use a lot of audio visual for ourselves as organizers, but also our exhibitors in presenting their products, services, and solutions in whatever exhibition you're in. So one part of our industry has really suffered dramatically, and that's the live events sector. You know, most of them have gone with 18 months without having any business at all, from theatre to concerts to product launches, exhibitions, whatever. So that part of the industry has suffered. But the other part, if we look at collaboration tools like Zoom, like Microsoft Teams or Blue Jeans, you know, all the different unified communication solutions have boomed in this time, because that's what people have moved to. And on the other side, what you've seen is the fact that people have not been able to go on vacation, and they're spending more time at home. So there's been a huge increase in home improvement, ranging from just painting and decorating right up to you know, buying a new TV or creating a better environment at home to make that more comfortable, more enjoyable.
So a mixed picture, fair to say. But then, just going back to, so you mentioned at the beginning that you've moved venues. You went obviously from recently from the RAI to Barcelona, and that's all in the middle of this sort of turmoil, wasn't it? So, and then, but you ran. So you traditionally run in February, correct? And
correct. So
in June, yeah. Just explain a little bit about that. Well, explain.
So we ran our event last February.
Okay. So explain why the move from Amsterdam to Barcelona. I'm intrigued about that and how you made that decision.
Okay. So firstly, on the move, what I can tell you is the RAI is a great venue, great people to work with, and it contributed to our success. You know, it's a great city. It's very, very accessible. I think has one of the largest number of flights from different destinations than any other airport in Europe. So it's easy to get people there. And that has helped us, but we started to outgrow the venue to the extent that we then had to use temporary structures as well. We got to the stage that even the temporary structures were not enough. But the other problem as well is using temporary structures in winter, we are traditionally in February, is not the best solution. You know, running a show in the summer with that is not a problem, but we end up with issues using technology, using equipment that generates heat. In a cold environment, it starts to heat up, and these structures create condensation, which then starts to drop down on sensitive equipment. So, you know, that's a solution that nobody could solve satisfactorily. And then we also started to, although Amsterdam is grown with the number of hotel rooms, we were also, you know, starting to run out of space there as well. So we started looking since 2017. The RAI tried to help us in, you know, they added additional space. We looked at different solutions, different ideas. Do we spread the show out across the city into different venues? Which was one idea we looked at, but we were very nervous to take people away from one central attraction and get them to satellite events. So in 2017, we started the process of looking at different venues to see, firstly, which venues in Europe were large enough to accommodate us now, but also give us the potential to grow in the future.
Yeah.
So that was the first stage, and that brought us down to a short list. We then looked at the hotel capacities in those cities to say, can they accommodate the 80,000 people we were bringing into the city?
Yeah.
And then the third point we looked at was, can we get people there, and can we get them around the city? So that whittled everything down to a very small short list. And then we sent out an RFP to those venues. We then ran surveys with our attendees and our exhibitors to ask them, outside of the category, the sector being covered by the exhibition being relevant for them, and us getting the right sort of attendees there, what other factors influence their choice? Things came up like ease and cost of transportation, availability and price of accommodation, hospitality, dining and entertainment, and language. And we went through various things, and Barcelona came out either, quite top or reasonably high up in that rating, except for language. And on the language side, I must say that's a perception issue. It was 10 years ago, it was an issue. You came here, and if you didn't speak Spanish, you struggled. Yeah. The city has changed dramatically in that time, that as a non-Spanish speaker, you can get around quite well. And in most places, restaurants, etc., you will find people speaking very good or a modicum of English. So these factors helped us.
Can I just, Mike, was the UK an option?
We actually looked at Excel. We looked at Birmingham. Whilst there's one thing, when we come, being in Amsterdam as the biggest show in town, you get a lot of attraction and you get noticed. The same in Barcelona. In London, you're just one of many events happening.
You get lost.
That together also with the fact that we had concerns about the Brexit issues, on how that might affect our we have a substantial amount of UK customers, but we have even more from outside. And then also the problem we would have had with Excel is that the only solution for future growth, which would have probably without COVID, we'd probably been addressing that in 2024, that we would have to again have temporary structures to accommodate our potential growth.
Got you. So the Barcelona location is for how long? Is that a long?
Well, we've signed a 3-year contract, and we will review this. Our view is to stay here long term. It's large enough to accommodate us now and accommodate the growth we see for the next 5 years. They're adding an additional hall to the venue, which will add, I think, another 40,000 square meters. So we have enough space here for quite some time. If Fiera Gran Via cannot accommodate us in the future, I think it's a very luxury problem.
Yes, great. It's a great. So then tell me. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the question, at the time that you moved, obviously, then the whole landscape changed, and we got in the middle of everything that's gone on for the last 15, 16 months. What did you then do then, and how did you accommodate? I know you've had your show in June. It'd be interesting to know how that.
Yes. So I mean, the first thing happened, I think, like most of us, in February, we all thought in a couple of months this will be over, and we were wrong. We started to, even until August, we still felt quite confident we might be in a situation to be able to run a show in February. But by September, we realized that it wasn't looking that way. And we started to make we already had our contingency plans. We'd actually made our contingency plans back in March, just saying, we had our what if plan in place. And that was to move to June. We'd already negotiated with the Fiera dates to make sure that if we were put in that position, we could actually move. So we postponed to June. And our intention was to run a fully sized show by then. Problem was that by the time we came to February, The horizon didn't look so good for June. We felt confident we could actually run a show, but running surveys on our attendees at that time, there was this concern about traveling. This was the biggest issue.
Yeah.
Whilst many of them said they would be confident about going to a local event, and in essence, going to exhibitions wasn't their worry, but traveling was a big issue. So looking at that, we came up with a concept to actually do 4 regional events. And the idea was to start in Barcelona, move a week later to Munich, a week later to Amsterdam, and to finish that in London. What happened in between, as time progressed, we were looking at the not only the incidence values of COVID, but also the rules, the government rules in place about running events. And we were getting to the point where the relaxation of those rules for events in Germany and in the Netherlands did not look very positive, that we would actually legally be able to run an event. Whilst Barcelona, we knew we were able to, and based on that, the rules at that time, we knew we were able to actually run an event in London, but also knew that there was a possibility that those laws might be relaxed in the UK at that time. As it was, they weren't. But we'd set our KPIs on the situation at the time we made that decision. So we ran our event in Barcelona. We had about just under 2,500 people attending. A mix, mostly local, but some international people from Germany. We had a few people from the UK, and those people who made it from the UK, it was quite a challenge for them, because whilst they didn't have to quarantine coming here, they did have to do so going back. But those who came were prepared for that. But we had a small event.
Yeah, I was going to say, so presumably that you restricted, not restricted, but people weren't spending as much as they would do on the main event, and therefore their expectations were less.
Yeah, I mean, we did 2 things, Simon. First was that we went back to our exhibitors and we gave everybody a refund, including those who had cancelled before we changed our dates. So, we made a decision. We wouldn't be, legally, we were not obliged to actually give that refund to those companies because they'd cancelled before we made that decision. But we decided, we belong to this industry, we're part of this industry, we know everyone's suffering, let's give everybody a refund. And we offered that refund to everybody. We gave some incentives for companies to leave their money with us, and which a substantial amount did, and moved that money over to committing to m.i.c.e 2022.
Did you think that the ownership, given that you just said it there, that you're part of the industry, helped you to navigate through all of that?
Absolutely, and it was actually, we felt it was important to do so, but we also recognized after we'd made this decision, the PR value we had from it was phenomenal. We were showing our industry, we're part of this, we're going to hurt with you. And whilst there are a lot of companies who said, well, actually we made that commitment, it's out of our budget, it's not going to be a problem for us, there were a lot of smaller companies who had cash flow issues. So it was very welcome by them to get their money back and be able to use that in the short term. And I think it was a very good decision. We're fortunate that we have 2 owners that could weather the situation financially, but quite fortunately, those companies who worked with us and moved their money over meant that we could actually run through that time as well. It helped us as an organization to stay autonomous in that way. So we went through the process.
Yeah, and so the events themselves did a job, I guess, and response.
Yes, they did. I mean, we didn't make any money on it. That was very much a PR activity. I can be honest, we didn't say we lost money in actually running those 2 events. But the value it brought back to those people who were there, both on the exhibitor and attendee side, and industry PR was really phenomenal. The second thing we felt was that we were giving a signal. We wanted to show that events could happen.
Yeah.
And everything that's been happening this month from us, from Mobile World, which has just been running this week, and everything else which will be running now, will actually make it easier for those organizations who are running events in the fall. And everything that happens in the fall will help us in 2022. And that's the sign we're trying to put out there. Let's get starting up. It doesn't have to be the big ISE, but let's show that something can happen. And, we're doing it for those people who want it to happen. We're not forcing people to be there. That's why we gave a refund, so companies didn't feel obliged that the only way they could get value for the money they'd invested was by doing the show. They knew they had an option. So everyone who did it and said, we want to be there.
And then I guess, what you've done is absolutely commendable and the right thing. And that's what I guess a lot of organizers are doing is reading the sentiment of an industry, which you're uniquely placed to be able to do so through your ownership, and then making decisions as a result of that. And that you're putting deposits in the bank, aren't you, for future events, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
But I think that it'd be interesting to get your view as to how you then think, because you're obviously geared up to February next year now, the big event, and hopefully things will have moved on with regard to the pandemic. But do you think there'll be any kind of hangover or legacy from what we've been through that will? I mean, is it possible to say at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's several things. One is that digital is here to stay, but digital is not the be all and end all of what we do. Our business is in-person events, and it will stay like that. I can recall even in our Montgomery days where people were saying, well, digital events, online events would take over in-person events. And here we are, 35 years later, and we're still doing very large in-person events.
Yeah.
What we do realize, though, and I must admit this is something where it's been forced on us, is that one of the things we see every year are people who've gone through the registration process for our show and then don't turn up. And it's not a case of just ticking one box. They have to go through quite a process. And we always go and survey them and say, well, you went through that. Why didn't you come? And invariably, it's something more important turned up that caused that. Sometimes some people are sick or whatever, but invariably the major issue, something more important turned up that prevented them coming along.
Yeah.
And we realized that for those people where something more important turns up, we can still give them a taste of what they might be missing and some important elements of it by offering a digital platform. And for those companies, one of the things we know will happen as a result of our move from Amsterdam to Barcelona. In Amsterdam, 17% of our attendants were from the Benelux, so the local region.
Yeah.
And what happens is those companies where the senior executives will always go to the show, when it's only a car ride and 4 guys can sit in the car and go and spend half a day or a full day at the exhibition, that won't happen. We will pick up from that in the Spanish region, but there'll be a lot of people who came from the Benelux region who are in more junior positions that may not be given the possibility to travel, but would like to be there. And they can also experience the show in this way as well. And many other people in other regions where they don't have the possibility to travel, but want to know what's going on. So for that reason, we will continue to offer a digital offering. How that looks may change. We've learned a lot. I think we were fortunate. Our digital attendance was about 8,000 people. I think if we'd done a digital event in May last year, it would probably be 4 or 5 times that amount. But there's this fatigue from digital events at the moment because there's been a plethora of them in the last 18 months. And those that started at the beginning had that novelty factor that everyone wants to see what it's like. Now we're at the end of that. You have to really offer real value from that. So we're seeing smaller audiences generally. It's not just us, but generally smaller audiences for digital. So you have to be creative. You have to add value there. And we've learned a lot by seeing what everyone else has done and learning from their mistakes and their the things that have really worked for them to come up with something that has been good.
And you know, it's well documented, but you know, the data you get is a lot better. The insight that you can drive from that is much better. It's more responsive. You engage obviously on a more regular basis, and like you say, you engage with different types of audiences, whether that's
Yes.
demographically or regionally, because you know, actually there are certain demographics that that you know, maybe don't. I mean, I think Doug from Tarsus was saying that he's seeing far more women engaged actually through digital than actually come to the shows for various reasons, which is great.
Okay.
So then, in terms of regionals, then I think have you got a show in Russia? Is that did I read that?
Yeah, we have a show in Russia. Obviously, we're suffering very much there. We didn't run one in November. There was a very small online offering. We are still looking at November this year to say, you know, will we be in a position? I think at this stage it doesn't look very positive. So we're not giving up on Russia, but certainly, you know, we're looking to see how do we reinvent that event.
Is that part of the strategy, Mike? In terms of, you know, you talked about digital expansion. Obviously, you've made a big move with the main show. Would you look at other geo adaptations or geo clones, as whatever you want to call it?
Well, firstly, you know, our remit is just the EMEA region. Okay. You know, our owners have events in the other regions, so you know, we're just responsible for the EMEA region. What is very clear is our exhibitors want one central show. We've spoken many times with them about regional offerings. They want one central event for the whole industry. What we've done, though, is in areas where we know it's either difficult or too expensive for those people to travel from. Example, Russia. You know, the challenges for many people to travel from Russia abroad to other countries, etc., are not the easiest. So that's the reason for doing an event there. You know, we've been looking at the Middle East. We've looked at Africa. You know, those sort of places as well. You know, our concerns about Africa, it's funny, I had a long talk with Sandy Angus about this a couple of years ago. And, you know, whilst the countries we see as the most potentials are the ones which we're more scared to actually do business in. So, you know, it's those sort of things that are challenges we look at. Say, but also we have to look at the size of the market. You know, when you have a market which is dominated by the channel, the profile you have in each region changes. You know, when we go to Russia, most of our exhibitors are actually distributors and not the manufacturers, because the representation there is through distributors. If we go to somewhere like Africa, it's very much distributors, and the attendees will have to be more corporate than channel. So the beast changes depending on where it is. Yeah.
Maybe you should get Sandy to do it for you. He's got plenty of experience over there.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Good. Well, look, Mike, I mean, that has been, as I anticipated and knew, that a really interesting, far-reaching conversation about a business that's gone through a lot of change, I think, but is definitely on an upward trajectory, which is great to see.
Yeah. I mean, Simon, one of the things which you pointed on before is, you know, the difference on being here and how the different venues operate. What you see here that's been phenomenal for us is the amount of support from government. And that's because, you know, they are involved in the ownership of the venues, and they want to actually help leverage events to work and bring in events that boost the economy. And I feel sorry for UK and Dutch venues where they don't have that amount of government support. It makes a difference, and we see the difference here and how much they get involved.
How does that manifest itself then, Mike, in terms of what is the practical support that you're getting from government?
Well, firstly, you know, the commitment that the government, the regional government and the local government have in terms of working and bringing companies to the exhibition themselves and subsidizing those companies. Secondly, in working with us as organizers to make facilities available, to work with local organizations, the chambers of commerce, opening up doors, making sure we have people there. You know, we had a tiny event here in June, as you know, it wasn't what m.i.c.e normally is, but they still said, okay, we will bring you the deputy president of Catalonia to do a show floor tour. We will bring you the Lord Mayor of Barcelona and the deputy mayor and ministers from all government departments, and that attracts the press. That you know, that attracts the business, etc. So you see a lot of support from the government to actually help the events work and help the events grow.
Yeah, and it's relatively straightforward stuff, isn't it? And it's stuff that you know, you would think UK government could do, Dutch government could do, but I mean that must have been a massive factor in you deciding on Barcelona in the first place.
It really helped, and you know, just the you know, unlike other, we know of organisers who've gone to other countries who've actually got the huge financial payments to come there. We didn't get that, but we've got massive support. We've got immense leverage on getting help in every sector we need. And you know, this counts for us, and it keeps us you know, being independent, autonomous on how we make our decisions, but knowing we have what we need to try and make a successful event.
And the support. Well, look, Mike, thank you. That's a good point to leave. All the very, very best for next February. I'm sure it'll be amazing.
Thank you.
And as I said, I think it's great to see a business on such an upward trajectory, and long may it continue. Mike Blackman, thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon.